Our part two.
Oh, there it goes.
Okay. Hey everyone, it's Karen. And on today's podcast, I brought Dani back again for our part two. So, Dani, how are you today?
Hi, Karen. I'm really well. Thanks for having me back. I do have
Yes.
a visitor here who would like to say hello as well. You want to
Okay.
get up here, bud? Come here. He's literally sitting here just waiting. He's waiting. So this is Teffer. This is the famous Teffer. Hi, everybody. Yes, he's the more famous one than me, so he's gotta have his minute.
He does. Very
He has main character energy. He thinks he's the main character here. Constantly telling him no, the supporting actor dude, but
What can you do with a cat?
that's right. It's like living with a bobcat gremlin.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
hmm I know that feeling. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you for introducing him. That was very
Yeah,
cute.
of
Um,
course. And thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yes, of course. All right, so let's dive right back into the questions and then let's go from there. All right, so the last question, or the first question, the last question from the last time I did
That
part
we
one,
left off on. Yep.
right, is what do you think is the future of reading and writing?
Oh gosh. I hope it has a bigger future than it looks like it's having now. I'm hearing a lot that little kids are really just looking at their screens and the attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. So I'm hoping that there's a resurgence of reading. I know there's a lot of people that obviously still love it. Just take a look at Instagram and book talk and all of those things. So I don't think it's going anywhere. And I'm hoping there's a bit of a resurgence of more what they call slow living, kind of offline where you're just enjoying life and being more present. I think reading is a big part of that, certainly for me. I know that the Kindle, the tablets, they're not going anywhere. But yeah, I think it's reading's not going anywhere, but it's changing quite a bit. There are a lot more short stories are more in demand because people want to have a shorter time with it. So yeah, I'm just really excited. I think the people that are growing up now are going to have a really different perspective on life than those of us like me who grew up in the 80s and 90s. So yeah, I'm really interested to see where it goes from here and what the younger writers coming up do with the whole genre, mixing genres and things like that. So yeah, I think it's a really exciting time to be involved in it.
And I completely agree. And how you said about the children nowadays, like their attention span is a little bit less than what you and I had in school and stuff. And I can actually vouch for that because I work for schools in the state that I live in, actually for the like assessment part of it. So I learn about all the curriculum and stuff that goes out for students in this state. And I have been hearing that students are having a little bit of hard time here. So my section is trying to figure out different ways to help kids want to be involved more in their studies. And English is part of your study. So figured I'd bring that up a little bit and then kind of loop it around a little bit with what
Yeah,
you said.
absolutely. Getting little kids and big kids, getting everyone engaged in reading is really important. Getting that buy-in from people that it really is fun
Yes.
to get into it. And communication is something that is really important for human relations, but is
Mhm.
falling by the wayside a bit right now, I think. So reading really helps with that. So yeah, like your job is so important, getting them engaged and excited,
Mhm.
going forward so we don't lose this precious thing that we have.
That is true. So, next question is what are your thoughts on ebooks versus printed books?
My thoughts on that have actually changed a bit in the past few years. I have always been, I mean, I don't dislike ebooks, but I've always had a preference for a book I can hold in my hands
Mhm.
and feel and smell and interact with on a more personal, intimate level, I guess. Um, and again, growing up as a kid in the 80s and 90s, I really spent a lot of time in libraries and just being among the books. We talked last time about wanting to have a library, that's a physical thing. Um, However, I have come to really enjoy the Kindle over the past even year or so. Publishing a book on Kindle, I thought, well, I should probably have access to ebooks. So I didn't know you could download it on your phone for free if you're already a member of Amazon and just have your Kindle on your phone. So I did
Oh,
that. And oh my gosh, I've been reading all the time because you can take it. Obviously, your phone is with you everywhere you go. So if I'm waiting for someone for 15 minutes, I can whip that baby out and just get lost in my reading. And before I know it, my wait time's over. I've discovered a lot of books that way. I'm actually reading a great book right now. It's called Cleave the Sparrow, I think is what it's called. It's the weirdest, wildest, craziest thing I've ever read. And I would not have found that if I wasn't on Kindle. It was recommended to me. So I think they both have their place. I enjoy that it's there for me when I need it. I can download an infinite number of books and have them in my pocket whenever I want them. But I think my preference would be for a physical book just because of the nostalgia and the way I grew up. So,
yeah.
yeah. So I love
I
them both. Any way we can get people reading, I say go for it, but my preference is definitely for physical.
and I completely agree with you. It, pretty much, I say the exact same thing anytime anyone talks to me about do I like ebooks or regular books. I grew up, like you said, in a library. You can touch them, feel them, smell them. Like that smell of a book, I don't know what it is, but it's just really amazing smell, and it really makes you kind of get more involved with the books too. Like if you know that, oh, that's been like a really old book that's been around for a while, so that means that this is a really good book compared to like the ebooks. Like you said, you have plenty all at hand anytime. Like you can find books, like you said. If you wouldn't have ebooks, you couldn't find anything else. So I completely agree with that as well. So third question, what do you like to do when you're not writing?
Gosh, so many things. I love reading, of course. That's a huge one. Spending time with friends and family. I live near a beach, so we spend a lot of time at the water. I grew up in northern Michigan, near Lake Michigan, so the water is a big thing for me. So anything around near water, in water, I'm there. I like taking a lot of walks in nature. Um, Let's see what else. I cook and bake a lot. I do a lot of art. I think you've seen a couple of the art things I put through on my stories just because I enjoy it. So I do a lot of oil pastel.
Mhm.
I've just been working a little bit with air dry clay. Just started working with that. That's fun. I try to write during the week. So on the weekend, I like to take at least one afternoon and try to do some visual art. Because I actually almost went to school for art to get a fine art degree. But then when I got there, I was always the best in my class when I was in high school. And then I got to college for art and I was like way down near the bottom of the class and my ego could not take it. Just, I was like your typical artist. And when they would say you would stand in front of the class with your art to have them critique it if they didn't like it, I was the a-hole who would tear it up in front of everybody and just be like, forget it, forget
Right.
all of this. So, yeah, I
I'm the
had to
same
work on
way.
that. They
I'm
really
the
had to
same
work on
way.
that. Yeah. So I went to school for accounting instead, but so now I've swung back around. Now that I'm in my 50s, I'm much more my ego is much more tame. And I can really do it more just for fun instead of trying to do it for acknowledgement. So I love art. I really think I just like making things. I think I just like doing it myself and figuring out how to do it. So yeah, a lot of hobbies outside of writing. I also, one of my favorite things right now is I'm learning a couple of new languages. So I'm like really jazzed on that right now. I do that after lunch every day. I'm taking lessons in Scottish Gaelic and I'm taking lessons in Welsh. That's just my family heritage. But then I am also brushing up on my high school French. So I've got three languages going right now and I could not be more excited
Right.
about it. It's like so fun.
That's
So,
exciting. Yeah,
yeah.
me and you have a few of the same things, like water, hiking, like nature, like you said, and
Yeah.
art, obviously. Artist. I wanted to go for art, but then I was like, realistically, I need an actual degree. So I went for business administration because I feel like that's the most
Oh,
chameleon degree within all the degrees because
yeah.
business is everywhere. And then I was able to minor in English with an emphasis on creative writing because I'm going to be an author one day, whether it kills
Yes,
me.
you are. You are.
Thank
Totally.
you.
I believe it.
Thank you. All right. So, next question. What are your favorite books or authors?
Oh gosh. Lots of favorite books and authors. I think I touched on a couple of these before, but probably my favorite book right now is a book called Blind Sight by Peter Watts. That one is a really good genre blend of science fiction and horror, and it's really smart. It's philosophical. It questions human consciousness and is that a good thing for us or a bad thing for evolution, having an actual consciousness and a moral code. Um,
Yeah.
it's a really, really good book. And it also has vampires in space, which
Ooh.
sounds crazy, right? It sounds like, oh my God, seriously. But he
Yeah.
does it in such a way that it is very, very believable. It's very believable, and terrifying and exhilarating. So that's a good one. Anything by Alice Hoffman. I love Practical Magic is one of my favorite books of hers. And then she's got now the whole Practical Magic series. So there are 3 or 4 of them now I think you can read. They're also doing a second Practical Magic movie this fall. I think it's coming out. So when I heard that, I heard someone squeal and then I realized it was me. Like I had let out this just like squeal of joy that, I was alone in the room, I was like, who did that? Oh, it was
Yeah.
me. I'm really excited about that. Um, so yeah, anything by Alice Hoffman. There's a great book called The Heretic Queen by Michelle Moran. And I really like her stuff. She's a historical fiction writer, so that's a little bit out of the horror genre, but it's she's a great writer. That's a great book, and that is actually where Teffer's name came from.
Oh.
That's where I found his name. So William Gibson, I think I mentioned him before. My dad and I read a lot of Dean Koontz when I was growing up.
Oh, yeah.
And he's got, a million books out there, but I really always enjoyed those, especially when I was younger. Um, yeah, I read a lot of different things, and particularly when I was younger, I read a lot of different genres, but yeah, I think that covers it. I also enjoy David Mitchell. He's the guy who wrote um, I'm trying to remember the name of the movie. It was a really popular movie. The one I'm thinking of that I love of the book is called The Bone Clocks. That's a great, great one if you're looking for a scary,
Okay.
scary book that's existential. And like I said, the one that I'm reading right now, Cleve the Sparrow, is really good and it's really weird. I have a penchant for odd books. I like a book that's really weird. So like if it's out of the box, I'll enjoy it usually. So the one that I'm reading now, I haven't finished it, but I have a feeling it's going to go on my list of favorites. And then another really weird one that's really good is called The House of Leaves. It's by a guy named Mark Danielewski, if I'm pronouncing it right. And that's the weirdest book I've ever read in my life. It actually left me feeling like this is what it's like to go insane. Like when I would read it, I was just really questioning reality. And I love that kind of a book. The last one I will mention that I read recently that fits in that category of very strange books is The Library at Mount Char is another great book like that. That's just unhinged. Just, and I love anybody who knows me knows I love something that's just like completely unhinged like that. So yeah,
Well,
so I'll leave it at those, but I think that's a good list.
yeah, those are some interesting books because I haven't heard of a lot of those authors. Because again, I
Hmm.
kind of stay to my little Stephen King section. I mean, I do Dean
Yeah.
Koontz as well, but um,
Hmm.
I like that you read something different. That way I can read something different. So
Yeah.
Um, All right, let's go to our next question. What are you working on next? And then we have two more questions and then we'll wrap up.
Okay, sounds good. What am I working on next? At the moment, I'm waiting for my editing package to come back on my book, The Clearing. That's a long, really long book. It's about 116,000 words, I think, is where I left it when I gave it to her. So yeah, it's 33 chapters long. That one is a story about a group of people that are killed in a mass shooting, and then they wake up on the other side right next to the person that shot them all. And then they're basically in the afterlife together. They have to go on a quest together with the guy with the kid who shot them to wrap up the loose ends of their lives. And it's like by the end, it's like, will they or won't they sort of become a family? Do they forgive him? You know, how does that go? So that was an interesting exploration for me, and I'm really excited to get her comments back and work on that. So that's probably the most pressing thing. I've been taking a little time off while she's been looking at that and tinkering around with some short stories. I actually woke up, I had a dream the other day, woke up with a whole short story in my head. So I got that out on paper. So I'll probably be tinkering around with that one. I may submit it to a short story place online that's opening for submissions in July. So I may do that. I'm working on putting together a book of horror shorts so that my book, Strange Worlds, which is out now, that's a book of science fiction short stories. I want it to have a twin that's in the horror genre. And I have way more horror short stories sitting around than I had science fiction short stories, so I have a lot to choose from. I'm trying to put that together. I would like to get that out by the fall, but that's probably a little bit ambitious. So I'm not really sure. My hope is to get The Clearing finished and edited so I can have that out and published by the fall. So that's really my main goal. If I can get to the horror anthology, I will do that as well. And then I have another book that I'm working on that is a nonfiction. So I'm not sure how I'll mention it on the Dani Ripley Writes Instagram when I have more information on that. I, however, am developing a separate Instagram for that one because it has to do with the business that I used to have. I make my own beauty stuff. Like I make my own face lotion, my hand lotion. I make my own deodorant. I wear that every day. Basically, I make everything in the beauty realm that I can at my house. I had a small business selling that stuff that was moderately successful. People really liked the products, but I just didn't have a lot of time to do that, work full time, and focus on the writing. So I closed that business and decided I'd go ahead and make a recipe book of all those recipes for my customers, because my customers are like, really, we want this stuff still. So I thought, well, that's a good way to combine both things. And so I'll be offering this recipe book for people who want it, but I'll primarily be marketing it over on this other Instagram page, which I'll link up, but it's kind of a weird, trying to market horror and like, oh, here's this other book. Doesn't
Right.
really make a lot of sense together. It'll still be under
Right.
Dani Ripley. But so that's another thing that I'm working on that I'm having a lot of fun with because my jam is like sustainable beauty. And so that's why I was making these things. I was making them in all recyclable containers and it's vegan. It's also all vegan.
Okay.
So I thought, well, what better way to really be sustainable? I mean, me packaging this stuff and shipping it out to somebody who then can't recycle their own stuff. I thought, well, what's more sustainable than offering somebody a recipe? They can do it in their own house. They can stick it in a mason jar if they want to. But then they can recycle their own jars. They can do their own thing, and that's really truly sustainable. And so I thought, well, that's perfect.
Right.
So so if I can get that out, that may happen as well in the fall. So I've got a lot of stuff. I got a lot of stuff in the fire here.
Nice.
And then I also had recently completed my fourth novel, which is a story about a family of witches growing up in the 70s and 80s primarily, but it goes way back over their history. So it's kind of a historical fiction slash horror. I'm really hoping to get back to that in early 2026. So if I can get these other things done, then my hope is to begin editing and working on that one to get that one out sometime in 2026. So a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, you do got a lot going on, but I mean,
Yeah.
hey, that makes you happy and
Mm,
that's all that matters. So,
yeah. And
and
I don't have kids, so I have a little extra time on my hands.
well,
So
there you go.
other than that dude up there, I don't have any kids.
Yeah. All right. So the next question was, what are your long-term goals as an author? Which I kind of feel like you kind of already said a little bit, but let's dive more into that.
Yeah, really long-term goals as an author is just to keep doing it. I don't really see myself ever stopping, even if nobody buys another thing that I do ever again or ever looks at it, I still will likely still write. So I don't think I'll ever retire from that. I'm my hope is that when I get to the point where I can retire from my day job,
Mhm.
that I'll be able to sustain myself with the writing because that does bring me joy. So I'm really not in it for the money, but I love money. I mean, who doesn't,
Right.
right?
Right.
I love money. I'm not going to turn it
Yeah.
down. So,
Yeah. Exactly. I
um,
wouldn't either.
so yeah, I mean, obviously the big dream is, 10-time New York Times bestseller, millions of dollars in the bank, a huge platform
Mhm.
so I can help as many people as I can because really, look at the state of the world. If there's anything anybody can do to help, it's fun to do that, but we can feel very helpless when, it's just little old you. And so I feel like, oh, if I ever build a big platform, you bet I'll be coming out with some stuff.
Good.
Uh,
I'm ready for it.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think the dream is kind of similar to other people's big author dreams, but really inside, as long as I can still do it, as long as I have hands to write with and a brain to think with, and a keyboard to do it on, or even a pad of paper and a pencil, that's really all I need.
That is true. Well, here's our last question, and then we will get to wrapping up. It is, what do you think is the role of an author in today's society?
Well, that's a really good question. I think the author has many different roles in society. I think for each individual author, they'll decide their own path and experience to that. But I think as a general rule, authors have been around as long as people have been around, as long as we've sat around a fire,
Mhm,
telling each other stories. The best storyteller was the one that people gravitated to and paid attention to.
mhm,
We as humans, we love stories and people who have made up stories or taken in the world and then made up a story that feels true or touches something in someone, helps them to learn a lesson or see through someone else's perspective that they might not have thought about. I think that's one of the best things about books is that you really get to see from someone else's perspective. You can immerse yourself in another world, even if
mhm,
it's a world that doesn't exist, and it still will teach you about yourself and about others. So really, as kind of the scribes, I think of medieval scribes that would follow their knights around and like scribble down everything that they did. I think
mhm,
writers are the recorders. We're the recorders of history. Um, and that's what really gives us a lot of the history that we don't have. A lot of that history gets covered up later, but it's still there. It still can be found if you seek it out. And that's what writers do. And I think it's really the arts in general. It's people who paint, people who draw, people who act and bring their emotions to the surface for someone who maybe is not able to access that in themselves at that moment, but they see that it exists and that it is available to them. Uh, so yeah, I think art is really important in general, and writers are a big part of that, of just being there to record their perspective of history and shine a light on what's going on for people in the future. I love to read a book that was written in, the early 1900s, and you just see the different, again, being immersed in this world that you can't experience at this moment, but you can experience it a little bit through someone else's perspective and what they've written about it. So yeah,
yeah.
I just love books. I can't speak enough about how much I love books and writing and language and, even the cave writing on the walls that tells a story. So we've been doing it since we've been able, since we crawled from the primordial ooze. We've been we've been at this.
Yeah, that is true. And I do like how explained the art part about writing, painting, all that is bringing their emotions to the surface for people that have the same thing but don't know how to understand it or anything, because I'm the same way. I was going through some stuff, and for me, like reading and stuff, that helped me. Art helped me escape in a different way than reading and writing does. It all just, I mean, it helps me escape, but also it helps other people, which I like, being able to do.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, and
but
I think humans are here to create. I think that's what we are put here to
mhm,
do. And I think it's really interesting when I had a friend or family, I can't remember who was talking to me about this a couple months ago, but they were saying how, I don't know, they were sort of offended how people who are very, very rich or like really, really rich kids, then they just go and they do art and they're just really successful and they just have to, they do art and that's all they have to do. And I
yeah,
sort of had a counter argument about that. I felt like when you have everything that you want and need and you don't need anything else, what do you want to do? Create art. I
right,
think that's cool. I think that's like when you're completely unfettered and you have nothing to worry about, I love the fact that the base instinct of a human is to create something. I think that's awesome. And so I made my little counter argument, and they were like, okay, I can see that, I guess.
yeah,
That like they could be out doing something horrible, but they want to make a picture. I mean, what's so bad about that?
right. See, I'm glad you brought that up because I was with your friend or family on that for a really long time. I didn't even think of it that way because I'm over here, like, I've had a really hard, struggling life, and I still make time to do all that because that was my like outlet, my escape and stuff, how I brought that up earlier. And
Yeah,
I like that you said that because yeah, they're what we want to do. We don't want day jobs. We want to be able to create writings, art, whatever, and they're getting to do that. So I can see why I'm still a little mad because like again, I want to do that, but like don't be
yeah,
mad at the situation. Like them, or I guess you can't really be mad at them. The situation, yes, but them, no. So,
yeah. Yeah,
uh,
I can certainly envy their situation and their money
yeah,
or whatever, their freedom, because really it's about
there we go.
freedom. It's
Yeah,
really less
freedom.
about money and more about the freedom to do what you want to
Mhm.
do, right?
Exactly.
But I just thought that was kind of a beautiful thing that when a human has all the freedom that they want,
Mhm.
most of us really just want to make something and create
Right.
something. And so I think that's kind of awesome. Like, although I am jealous. I mean, I want the money too. Like I said, I love money. I'll put that out there all day long. Like, ain't nothing wrong with that.
Mm-mm. That is true.
In this
So,
material world, that's what we all agreed to come and be in this material world. And so, you want to hate
yeah,
money, it'll hate you back.
exactly. But all right, thank you again for coming on for part two
Yes.
and doing this whole, even part one with me. I really have learned a lot, and I'm really appreciative that you have again came on here not once but twice, and just want to thank you again. And to everyone out there, thank you for coming on to our podcast today. So have a good rest of your day, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.
Thanks, Karen. Bye.
Bye.